Alright, this is getting ridiculous. It didn't even take long for me to recover from the heartbreak of Yanyan and some of my other favorites being eliminated because the moment round 3 began, it was clear. The 20 who made it are operating on an elite level of mastery. How the jury is supposed to cut that in half, I honestly have no idea. There's praise to give to every single one of them. Each pianist has something uniquely identifiable, a personal dialect in their own Chopin. Maybe I'll make a separate video dissecting each one once the dust settles. Now, according to the Chopin Institute moderator, the scoring this year is divided as follows. Round 1 carries 10%, round 2 carries 20%, round 3 carries 30%, and the finals 40%. That might sound a bit too technical, but it's actually significant. The final round has been the Achilles heel of many otherwise legendary pianists. Several expected gold medal winners lost not because of their artistry, but because the concerto didn't go their way. So who knows? And this year, for the first time, the Polonaise Fantasy will be mandatory in the finals, alongside one of the two concerts, a much welcome change in my opinion. I'm not gonna mention all 20 pianists, I'm just gonna make my personal pick for the final 10. Some I know for a fact will absolutely make it, and already have a place in the top 6. The rest could be anyone's game at this point. Since this is a competition after all, when discussing pianists, I have to play the devil's advocate here. Even though I'm no jury, I'm gonna try to imagine being one, and will therefore scrutinize some of the negative aspects as well as the positive ones. I have the highest respect and regard for all of them, and I truly believe these are the best of the best, the creme de la creme of pianists of this age group worldwide. The story of round 3, as always, is more about the mazurkas than the sonatas. Every edition we hear the same comments. This isn't how a mazurka should sound. They don't understand Polish rhythm. This rubato is wrong. It's like the Olympics of nitpicking. Click on the top right here for an exploration on how mazurkas can be played. Anywho, let's start with a list of whom I think will be in the final 10. So far, it seems that the first names I mentioned in the previous two videos have been eliminated. So to break this curse, the first name I'll mention now will be Kevin Chen. Oh my god, yes, he bleeds. He's human after all. This was by far Kevin's most convincing round yet. Yes, there were mistakes, but that's exactly what we needed. For the first time, we saw charm, charisma, and vulnerability in his playing. His musical conception was vivid, and his technique finally served expression rather than perfection. The slow movement of the third sonata sang with warmth and humanity, and the mazurkas were clean, deliberate, and full of life. In round 3, Kevin felt real. He showed us who he is as an artist, not a machine. If this is a version of Kevin Chen we see in the finals, then we might just be witnessing the birth of a legend. Then there's Tianyao Lyu, a bona fide superstar already. I suspect in 50 years they'll talk about her the same way we talk about Martha. I can already imagine people in the comments saying, "Don't you dare speak Martha's name in vain. She's the next Yu Wang." And that's not just a comparison of age or brilliance, it's about the sheer magnetism she radiates when she plays. The marketing conglomerates and social media overlords will devour her and consume this jackpot package of her genius, talent, and charisma until it breaks her. Tian Yao has been one of the few pianists who have been consistently exceptional in all three rounds. The B flat minor sonata, oh my god, how can a 16-year-old conceive something so dark and morbid with such conviction? Each movement was a masterclass in narrative playing. Some critics were telling me that they felt her playing was mannered in the earlier rounds, but this sonata simply refutes that. It wasn't stylized, it was lived and experienced in the moment. The trills in the funeral march were refreshingly crisp and staccato as opposed to the usually pedal assisted ones we're hearing. As for the finale, the presto, what in the Rachmaninoff was that? The velocity, the voicing, the phrasing of groups of notes together, the accented top notes, the roller coaster ride of dynamics, simply immaculate. If I were to think like a judge and nitpick here, my only concern would be the projection of the sound. Obviously, I'm only listening to a recording and not in the hall, so I can't really accurately judge, but at some of the more rapid passages, the sound did feel a bit thin. But I'm only splitting hairs here. I really think she has a strong chance of getting first or second, and her worst case scenario would be fifth or sixth. We'll see how her final goes. Either way, we have a new superstar breaking through the scene. Then there's David Khrikuli. Historically speaking, and even in this current edition, this competition doesn't really favor the quote-unquote musicians, and Khrikuli is the definition of one. Even though he's only 24, he plays like someone who's already lived a few lifetimes and seen a few wars. Every note seems to come somewhere from deep within. He is a torchbearer of the Russian school in this edition. Vulnerability, sincerity, and intensity always trumping precision. That might cost him the gold, but it's also what makes him unforgettable. His C minor Mazurka Opus 56 number 3 shook me to my core. The depth of the sound, the decaying resonance, the ability to shift from nocturnal nostalgia to dance-like delirium. His sonata too was magnificent. The whispered singing pianissimo in the funeral march middle section was mastery. The rest of the program, from the impromptu to the two waltzes and the fourth scherzo, fitted him perfectly. The fourth scherzo isn't a piece for everyone. Unlike the other scherzos, the layman won't get the immediate appeal, but it's certainly a musician's piece, and only a true musician can execute it convincingly. For the finals, he's going for the F minor concerto, again, the more musical of the two, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm not sure whether the precision errors and occasional wrong notes will affect his scoring, but he's definitely a lock in for the top 6 or even podium. Then there's Vincent Ong. Ong's preludes from round 2 were a revelation to me, and he continued his streak of excellence in round 3. I always ask myself, hypothetically, what would be the outcome if the great Vladimir Horowitz competed in this competition? Well, Vincent Ong is the closest thing we have to a Horowitzian style in the history of this competition. His dynamics are shockingly volatile, from massive orchestral sonorities to whisper-thin sound decibels. I love how a phrase never repeats itself in the same way. Refer to the development section in the first movement of the B minor sonata, where a left-hand melody first plays normally, then repeated in the soft pianissimo like an echo. Vincent is special. For me, he's the complete musician. He can convey a musical idea in such an original and inspired way without disrespecting the score. As of round 3, my personal choice for gold medal is Vincent. If I were to nitpick, and honestly, I hate myself for saying this, but maybe in terms of appearance, the competition may not have their typical knight in shining armor poster boy type gold medalist. I sincerely hope this kind of thing isn't taken into account. Then there's William Yang, reliable, solid, by the book. His playing was clean, refined, and safe. Maybe a bit too safe for my taste, but it's exactly the kind of thing juries tend to appreciate. However, I think out of all the B minor sonatas we heard, his fourth movement was the best. He played at high risk and did not flinch or fumble. I hope we get to see more of that if he makes it to the finals. Moving on to Tomoharu Ushida. Ushida's highlight was his round 2 sonata. Transformative playing, full of control and poetry. In round 3, he continued the same structured, highly architectural manner. Every phrase carefully balanced, the sound crystalline. It's a refined, disciplined style, reminiscent of Sang Cho. But with that moderate risk type of playing comes expectation. Precision must remain immaculate. By the final movement of the B minor sonata, you could sense fatigue, a slight unraveling. That might cost him, but his musical intelligence remains undeniable. Then there's Shiori Kuwahara. If you've watched my earlier videos, you already know how much I love Shiori's sound. Her tone remains one of the most majestic in the competition. She intonates every note, and even scale or arpeggio passages, you feel the fullness in the sound. Pletnev would be proud. But I have to be honest, her round 3 didn't quite reach the same height as her earlier rounds. Some mazurkas, especially the Opus 33 number 4, lacked rhythmic bite and felt more like nocturnes. Maybe she leaned too far into the metaphor, losing a bit of dance. Still, her sound remains pure magic. For me, she's in the top 10, but will the jury agree? That's anyone's guess. Then, either one of the Lees. Both Lees were excellent, but not without fault. Hyo's B flat minor sonata didn't quite land for me. His bravura style, which works beautifully in extroverted repertoire, feels mismatched here. The finale redeemed it somewhat, but not fully. Hyuk, on the other hand, was in great form, though you could sense fatigue towards the end of the B minor sonata. Compared to his 2021 version, I still prefer that one. It had more spontaneity and less caution. They're both phenomenal pianists, but there probably isn't room for both in the finals. If I had to pick one, I'd go with Hyuk. Then there's a spot for one Polish pianist. There's never been a final without at least one Polish representative, and I don't think this year will be any different. If we're talking pure merit, the Chinese competitors have been stronger overall, but national pride and home advantage is real. Of the Polish pianists, Piotr Pawlak stands out for me. His rondo was extraordinary, one for the ages, though the ending of his sonata got a bit messy. Still, that's a spot I think he'll occupy, outside the top 6, but representing the home crowd. There's also a chance that Piotr Alexievich might snatch it from him. I just heard him play live, and the Andante Spianato, a Grand Polonaise, came in clutch. That was freaking brilliant. Honestly, one of the best renditions I've heard this edition. Is it enough to put him in? I'm not sure. Then there's Zitong Wang. If there was a winner for each round, I think Zitong is by far the undisputed champion of round 3. My bet for Best Sonata Award, Zitong. What an absolutely colossal monstrosity of an opening to that B flat minor sonata. She absolutely went for it. High risk, high reward, and it paid off. It was so refreshing to hear the opening played like that, William Capell style. The scherzo was also ferocious, with the middle section played ever so lyrically. The funeral march was played with a solemnity that even someone so sensitized to it like myself felt its impact. The world-class crescendo on the return of the theme eclipses that of Gadzhiev in 2021. The finale was shocking. The trend this year seems to be all about the inner voices and making it more melodic than it should be. Zitong approached it with such a stark, icy coldness, befitting of what this movement should represent. And guess what? The inner voices and all were there, but subdued and never in your face. Honestly, her mazurkas and sonata alone should have been enough to get her through, but no. She added the E major waltz, the Opus 12 variations, and the first scherzo as a cherry on top. All of which were played flawlessly as well, and the scherzo, maybe there's recency bias here, is the best interpretation of it I've ever heard. Don't believe me? Go listen to it. Honestly, the jury have no excuse. She's undeniable. I'm trying to play devil's advocate with her, but I simply can't. Eric's been battling an injury to his right index finger since before the competition, and it seems to have flared up again. He even postponed his round 3 performance because of it. But my god, is this recency bias, or did we just witness the most divinely played barcarolle in the competition's history? The barcarolle alone reminded me how he's a category above everyone else here. This is no mere competitor. This is a master pianist coming here to show the world how it's done. The miracle of his barcarolle lies in how he reconciled everything: the composer's intent, the letter of the score, and his own unmistakable personality. Inner voices everywhere, perfectly balanced dynamics, phrasing that breathes, rhythmic precision, and a left hand that could teach a masterclass on tone production. 10 out of 10 in every aspect. I'm not gonna lie, I had my doubts about Eric with the injury, and I felt like he wasn't opening up in the first 2 rounds, but he has arrived in his full glory. The B flat major Polonaise was an excellent choice and executed perfectly. The Mazurka's a masterclass in style, and the B minor sonata, despite my fatigue from hearing it for the zillionth time, felt fresh. The first movement especially combined both a sweet fragrance and intensity specific only to Chopin. See you in the finals, Eric, and welcome back to contention. Okay, I ended up with 11 pianists, but it was impossible to remove anyone from the list. Last year, they admitted 12 to the finals, so who knows this year? What are your predictions? Who are your top 6? And who do you think is taking the Zimmerman Prize for Best Sonata and the prize for the Best Mazurka? Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the finals.